That house is not fit to live in.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for yet another list of underseen and undervalued films from the world of horror. We'll probably be divulging some important plot points, so a spoiler alert is in effect.
Now I don't know who's dead or alive. I'm sick of killing.
Number 20, The Wailing. This movie delves into a number of different genres, from occult horror to police procedurals to classic zombie cinema. Yet this modern horror classic also manages to feel even more expansive than those solid influences. The Wailing takes audiences into a universe of mysticism, leading into an almost impenetrable darkness. Director Na Hung-jin constructs a bleak narrative here, together with more cerebral dialogues on grief, superstition, and real-world evil. The Wailing asks a lot of questions, and the answers it gives may not exactly leave you feeling good about how the world works, but you will never forget the experience.
귀신이 들러붙어서 그런 거인가, 그것이.
뭐 처음엔 그랬겠지.
Number 19, Lake Mungo.
Palmers were really doing it tough at that time. When I think of how bad it was back then, it's hard to imagine how much worse they would get.
There have been a number of horror films that utilize the grieving process as a backdrop for their stories. Don't Look Now is a classic example of this, while 2008's Lake Mungo feels somewhat like kin to that 70s shocker, with a solid update to that central dramatic theme. The found footage style utilized within Lake Mungo doesn't feel cheap or out of place, but instead serves to ramp up the drama and service the story. The unbelievable tragedy that befalls the family in this film makes it easy to connect with all of the docudrama elements at play. And the overall creepiness of Lake Mungo still gives us chills.
At some point, this figure came towards her from out of the darkness.
Number 18, The Black Cat.
Supernatural, perhaps. Baloney, perhaps not. There are many things under the sun.
This collaboration between horror icons Boris Karloff and Bela Lugosi may not be as well known as Dracula or Frankenstein, but it could be argued that The Black Cat is actually as significant. There's a wealth of stylistic influence here from German Expressionism, while Lugosi and Karloff's respective performances certify their greatness as masters of their craft. The Black Cat possesses a malevolent atmosphere and enduring haunting sense of grandeur. This is Golden Age horror polished to gleaming perfection, with a surprising bite that made it subversive and boundary-pushing for its day.
That's what I'm going to do to you now. Tear the skin from your body. Slowly. Bit by bit.
Number 17, The Hitcher.
You want to know what happens to an eyeball when it gets punctured?
Certain classic films will never be eclipsed by remakes. This stunning 1986 original stars Rutger Hauer in one of his grisliest and most memorable roles as a demented hitchhiker who relentlessly stalks a young man played by C. Thomas Howell. Howell and his co-star Jennifer Jason Leigh are more than a match on screen for Hauer, and it's the nerve-wracking push and pull that serves as the crux of The Hitcher. This horror film is pure tension personified, and it's Hauer's obsessive performance that's burned into our collective subconscious forever as a good reason to never pick up a hitchhiker.
Because I cut off his legs and his arms and his head.
Number 16, Dead and Buried.
You will try to kill me, Dad, but you can't. You can only make me dead. Go on, pull the trigger.
A film is only as good as its script, and 1981's Dead and Buried had a boffo screenwriting team in the form of Dan O'Bannon and Ronald Shusett. Their creativity within the confines of genre cinema shines once again with this film, as it did with Alien. Dead and Buried at once feels both nostalgic and current. On the one hand, the body snatcher tropes going on within the small town of Potter's Bluff feel indebted to horror's old school. The gruesome special effects, however, are most definitely straight out of the Monster Kid playbook. As a result, Dead and Buried feels timeless, the sort of film that continues to offer rewards for those who discover its quirky charms.
Call it black magic. Call it a medical breakthrough. I'll take my secret to the grave.
Number 15, Saint Maud.
She'll be all right?
Oh, don't be an idiot, Richard.
You gotta hand it to director Rose Glass. Saint Maud was a successful and impressive feature-length debut for a filmmaker who seems destined for more greatness. Horror fans flocked to Saint Maud and its tale of a caregiver who may be losing her grip on reality. Some of the best horror films adapt real-world situations or struggles and lay them out against a tableau of the fantastic. Saint Maud delves deep into religious fanaticism and accompanies the theme with striking visuals. Glass's direction here feels purposeful and assured, and we can only hope she continues on this successfully creative path on future films.
Bymhlentyn, mae'r awr yn nesau. Yn fuan fe fyddwn ymuno ar coflediad mawr.
Number 14. Stage Fright.
I hurt myself.
Oh, I'm awfully sorry about that. You better go home and take care of whatever it is that's hurting you.
A number of the films on this list are Italian, and that is for good reason. Stage Fright is only one of the films that sprang out of Italy's horror industry supernova during the 1970s and 80s. Director Michele Soave was a uniquely creative voice within Italian horror, and his amazing imagination permeated films like Stage Fright. Here, the well-worn slasher tropes are given new life by the completely bonkers idea of giving the killer a giant owl mask to wear. Additionally, the murder set pieces are unrepentantly graphic and sleazy, reveling in the red stuff in a manner Italian filmmakers became known for. Add to this a throbbing score by Simon Boswell, and you have a recipe for a Mediterranean horror feast.
Okay. I'm ready. Let's go.
Number 13. The Golem.
Out of darkness cometh light. Out of death springeth life.
Golems, creatures from Jewish folklore, have appeared now and again in film throughout the years. Michael Mann's The Keep comes to mind, as does the series of silent horror films that bore the creature's name back in the 1920s. This titular golem from 2018, however, successfully adapts the golem's origin story from a man-made monster into something with far more emotional resonance. Here, themes of parenthood and marital strife are counterbalanced against scenes of horror and violence. Yet the golem never feels heavy-handed. If anything, it's quite the opposite. And this is a horror film with a lot of worthwhile emotional layers.
Who do you suggest might create this creature? Moses himself, perhaps?
I will.
Number 12. A Bay of Blood.
He's a good soul, really. It's just that recently he's come up with some weird notions.
We return to Italy for our next pick. A fine example of how that country's giallo genre of graphic murder mysteries went on to influence the American slasher scene. Scenes from 1971's A Bay of Blood would be essentially lifted by movies like Friday the 13th Part 2, like the sequence involving an amorous couple who are attacked while in bed. Director Mario Bava was already a film legend prior to helming A Bay of Blood, yet it would be this film's intense levels of violence that would earn him true international infamy. There are no heroes here, only victims for the body count. A Bay of Blood is a frenzied whodunit that pushed some serious boundaries in '71, and remains relevant viewing today.
You thought you could take my mother's place, didn't you?
No.
But I'm going to kill you like I did tonight.
I have nothing to do with it.
Number 11. A Tale of Two Sisters.
그 여자도 이상하고 이 집도 이상해.
Horror fans in North America have long sought out imported shockers from Europe, Asia, and beyond, all to receive a properly balanced cinematic diet. A Tale of Two Sisters was one of the earlier examples of South Korean horror that made crossover headway overseas, however, and was a critical and commercial cult classic. The film is a ghost story, sure, but A Tale of Two Sisters also knows how to dance around genre conventions to hit its own creative beats. There's a lot of darkness here, a tragic tale that isn't for those seeking out easy answers or happy endings tied up in a bow. Instead, A Tale of Two Sisters presents a psychologically messy family drama with an extra side helping of supernatural scares.
네가 나한테 마녀 하나 있는 거 알아. 내가 나쁜 아빠라는 것도 알고.
Number 10. Tales from the Crypt.
Well, at least feed my dog, please. He'll be fed all right.
The horror anthology has always been a great medium with which to tell a variety of stories. The original Tales from the Crypt from '72 is arguably one of the best of these, and packs some serious star power. Joan Collins, Peter Cushing, Patrick McGee, and more all lend their talents to this wonderfully creepy anthology full of thematic schadenfreude for those who face the Crypt Keeper, played by Ralph Richardson. These are mini morality plays with the sort of classy execution that was a hallmark of British horror in the 1970s. There is no doubt that Tales from the Crypt is some of the best horror ever produced by the UK.
Who's next? Perhaps you?
Number 9. Quon.
お前が自分で想像しとったことは全部幻じゃ。死んだ者が訪ねてきた以外はの。
Tales from the Crypt isn't the only awesome horror anthology film on this list. Quon hails from Japan and was released back in 1964, yet it still possesses some seriously scary staying power decades later. Scary, that is, if you can get past just how gorgeous this film looks. The cinematography, set design, and visual style of Quon are sumptuous and impossible to forget. At the same time, its tales of terror bring to the screen stories that are ghostly morality tales with plenty of spooky visuals. Quon is a film that is astonishingly atmospheric and guaranteed to put you in the Halloween spirit. Just be sure to start this one late at night when the moon is full.
美少年ね、あなたは。私はもうあなたに危害は加えません。
Number 8. The Burning.
You ain't never gonna forget this man. As long as you live, you're never gonna see a freak like this.
The 1980s were a halcyon decade for the slasher movie, particularly during its earliest years. The Burning may not be spoken of as often as its peers, but there are more than enough elements here to make it worth your time. For starters, there's the presence of future stars Jason Alexander and Holly Hunter, appearing here in the infancy of their careers. Additionally, the special effects from Tom Savini are off the charts in terms of execution, particularly on the infamous raft scene. Meanwhile, Yes keyboardist Rick Wakeman delivers a wonderful score that's quirky and creepy in equal measure, and the ending bucks final girl slasher convention.
So don't look. He'll see you. Don't breathe. He'll hear you. Don't move. You're dead!
Number 7. In the Mouth of Madness.
Every species can smell its own extinction. The last ones left won't have a pretty time of it.
Director John Carpenter is lauded for films like Halloween and The Thing, and rightfully so. However, fans would be wise not to sleep on some of his later work, including this banger from 1994. In the Mouth of Madness is Carpenter indulging in some seriously occult Lovecraftian vibes, but doing so with his own inimitable flair. The question of fantasy versus reality is very present, as In the Mouth of Madness revolves around the works of fictional horror novelist Sutter Kane. Answers here aren't exactly clear-cut, and Carpenter's film has a great time going off the deep end in terms of atmosphere, excitement, and impressive visuals. In the Mouth of Madness is a must-watch.
A reality is just what we tell each other it is. Sane and insane could easily switch places if the insane were to become the majority.
Number 6. Demons.
Rosemary se puso la máscara y se arañó en la cara. Y ese arañazo la convirtió en un demonio, un instrumento del mal.
There are few Italian horror films from the 1980s that possess as much sinful glee as 1985's Demons. Director Lamberto Bava had this stuff in his blood, since his dad was the aforementioned maestro Mario Bava. Demons is substantially more popcorn fare than much of the elder Bava's work, but this is in no way a slight. In fact, this is one of the reasons why Demons is so successful. It keeps plot points and extraneous locations to a minimum, setting up the story where people are locked inside of a movie theater full of bloodthirsty creatures. Demons is heavy metal horror turned up to the max, with insane special effects and a pace that never lets up. It is pure escapist pleasure.
No es la película. Es este lugar.
Number 5. Don't torture a duckling.
Because it was found lying not far away.
Not far away from where?
From where another boy was killed.
No. Not another one.
Don't Torture a Duckling is very different than Demons stylistically, despite being produced in the same country. Director Lucio Fulci was often referred to as Italy's godfather of gore, but this film proves that the man certainly was not defined by this moniker. Instead, Don't Torture a Duckling tackles small-town persecution, religious fanaticism, murder, and abuse in perhaps the bleakest manner possible. Fulci's direction is strong and stylish, but never at the expense of the story. Meanwhile, Florinda Bolkan's performance is at once both tragic and mesmerizing, helping elevate Don't Torture a Duckling towards the apex of Italy's horror pantheon.
Well, I've got to talk to someone, don't I? I mean, you're the only civilized human being in this lousy place.
Thanks a bunch.
Number 4, The Changeling.
No one's been able to live in it. It doesn't want people.
Are you looking for a slow burn, creepily atmospheric horror film to keep you warm on those cold winter nights? Then might we suggest The Changeling from 1980? This Canadian horror film is often cited as one of the country's best international horror offerings, and with good reason. Newer generations have been discovering this spook show and becoming captivated by its story and performances. George C. Scott in particular shines in the lead role, as a grieving man who moves into a house that may or may not be haunted. John Russell lost everything after the untimely deaths of his wife and child, and the Changeling channels this loss to charge nearly every frame with melancholy, beauty, and, yes, fear.
I understand you lost your wife and daughter a little while ago. Maybe it shook you up. Maybe too much. Maybe you need help.
Number 3, Cemetery Man.
Why the barbed wire? Do they climb in at night?
No. They climb out sometimes.
Would you mind coming down?
Cemetery Man is yet another film from Michele Soavi to make our list, a testament to the director's timeless power. This flick may be Soavi's crowning achievement as a filmmaker, and proof that Italian horror still had something to say during the 90s. The film stars a young Rupert Everett as a cemetery caretaker who keeps having to take care of the annoying living dead who rise from their tombs every night. Soavi injects Cemetery Man with sexuality, violence, and an anarchic sense of humor that goes a long way in keeping this film unlike anything you've likely ever seen. Additionally, can we just say that it also includes what just has to be the greatest Grim Reaper ever committed to film?
Stop killing the dead. They're mine. If you don't want the dead coming back to life, why don't you just kill the living?
Number 2, Opera.
Tonight you make your debut as Lady Macbeth.
What?
Are you happy?
Who's speaking? Is this a joke?
Dario Argento was already well established as a horror icon prior to directing Opera in 1987. The director's groundbreaking work with films like Deep Red and Suspiria helped cement Italy as an international voice for genre cinema. Yet Opera proves that Argento still had plenty of gas left in the creative tank. Graphic murders are taking place within an opera house that's gearing up for a high-profile production of Macbeth. What does this have to do with Mara Chikova, and why is she being forced to watch? The answers aren't so simple, and honesty takes a backseat to all of the wild and crazy set pieces that make opera such idiosyncratic viewing. This one may be one of Argento's most unhinged works.
Are you nervous?
A little. No, a lot.
Well, I'm here now, so you can relax.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Number 1, The Innocence.
Enter, my lord. Come from your prison. Come from your grave. For the moon is arisen.
This incredible film from 1961 is an all-time classic ghost story, a masterpiece adapted from Henry James's novella The Turn of the Screw. The film is all about atmosphere, with a growing sense of unease, paranoia, and self-doubt building to a feverish pitch. This is filmmaking that takes its time ramping up tension, and the end results make this ride utterly worth the wait. The idea of childhood innocence is juxtaposed against ghostly possessions and hallucinations that may, or again may not, be stress-induced. The special effects, and particularly the haunting music, remain powerful today, making The Innocence a film experience well ahead of its time.
We must try to learn what it is these horrors want.
What's the scariest horror film you always recommend to your friends? Let us know in the comments.
헛귀신 중에서도 아주 악질의 사령이요, 사령.
Did you enjoy this video? Check out these other clips from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.